Hi, good morning, everyone. Yeah, come on, this is Belgrade. I heard it's a party city and a food city. I've been here since Saturday. Good morning. Hi, thank you. Thank you for turning out. And I'm going to go back on this. Let me see. So I, as you might have guessed, come from Asia. I specifically come from Malaysia. So my name, which our pretty host struggled, is I'm trying to go back here, right? Is Sharala Axryd. So Sharala is my, I'm Indian who's living in Malaysia, but Axryd, can you go back? Axryd is my Swedish name, right? I lived in Sweden for more than 10 years and born and bred in Malaysia. I am not a data scientist, so is that Dr. Milan? I'm not a unicorn, but I am I would like to call a data science evangelist. I nurture data science, and I'm one of the biggest employer of data scientists in my country. So I do come from what I agree a lot about what Dr. Milan was saying just now, and I like the questions you guys asked just now. How do I become a data scientist? Do I pay for courses? These are all very valid questions that we have personally seen it in the last 3 years of this data science journey in Malaysia, yeah? So ADAX, ASEAN Data Analytics Exchange. Now what is it, right? It is an initiative by my government to make Kuala Lumpur. How many of you been to Asia? Do you know where's Malaysia? No, it's nice to know that because the Swedes, they know Thailand, they know Singapore. And they don't know the huge country that's in between that, right? So I'm not going to make assumption because I lived in Sweden many years, and then they don't know Malaysia. So if you know Malaysia, it's right in center of ASEAN. And the initiative of my country is to ensure that Kuala Lumpur becomes the hub for data analytics in that region. Now, if you look at the whole world as a business, you have, if you talk about Asia, I'm not going to touch about Europe, and I'm not going to touch on US, you know that. Then you have China, thanks to Jack Ma, and then you have India, right? But ASEAN is a big black hole, right? And I felt the same way when I came here about the Balkans. It's a well-hidden secret, I think. And one of the reasons I'm here today is to explore that, right? So ASEAN's GDP is $1.32 trillion. It is in India by itself. It is China by itself, right? Population, 600 million. 50% of this population is 35 years and below, okay? So it's a huge untapped market that with the bubble, with China and India, more and more investors are looking at ASEAN as the new goal, new opportunity, new talent, yeah? So this makes it really amazing to set up ADAX in Kuala Lumpur. Now, myself, coming from engineering background, I founded the Center of Applied Data Science in Malaysia purely out of need. Okay, I got involved in telecommunications project that required me to hire more and more of these unicorns that Dr. Milan was talking about. So that's not enough. There's no way you're going to have a 10-year experience when data science only started 3 to 4 years ago, right? So I thought, having been abroad, I can't get them, I make them, right? So I started the Center of Applied Data Science, which eventually led to my government requesting me to head ADAX to drive this initiative. Okay, so hence today I'm here. Thanks to Dr. Wolf, who's there. I met him in Austria nearly a year ago, and he thought I should come for this conference to talk about the initiatives and the ideas and inspire people why you should take up this data science, yeah? Why is it important? Because there's humongous amount of data being created every day, right? This is why data science is important, but I don't know about your culture, but my culture, if you see Satya and you see Pichai from Google, we are all Tamils. So I grew up, my parents telling me I have to become a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, and education to get a job, a guaranteed job, yeah? So how many of our younger generation, so I'm born in the 70s, so I'm old, right? How many of our younger generation actually go to university and say, oh, I want to become a data scientist? Right? No, it's not, my parents don't even know how to say this word probably, right? So it's important for us, not only universities to offer this, but people have the awareness and wanting to take up this as a job. So creating the need, giving them sexy names is essential for me. Dr. Wolf will disagree with him, so with me, I'm going to fight with him on that, because he actually says, and I think there's a lot of good points about it, when people start claiming themselves as this unicorn, and then they start demanding what they think that the industry should be paid or should be bestowed upon them. And I think that's really important to balance the need and the real acceptance on who are these data scientists, yeah? So how many of you like aspiring data scientists here? Can I see some hands? Right, are there students here? Oh, okay, that's nice, okay. And how many of you are already a data scientist? Oh, okay, so you want to know more about this, right? Yes, Dr. Wolf, that's my compass. Okay, so to give an idea, what has changed? I'm not going to go back 3 years, 10 years. I'm just going to take a minute of a year of 2016 and how much that's moved to 2017, right? So if you look at YouTube itself, last year per minute, there's 2.78 million viewers. For 2017, it's nearly doubled. Okay, it's shocking. Just to give you the exponential rate, the data is growing, right? You don't have Uber. I'm shocked. I'm upset because I couldn't call for a taxi. I have to get people to call for me for a taxi. But Uber, last year, there's about 1,300 odd people per minute using Uber. It's 3,000 over, nearly 4,000 Uber users per minute. And imagine when Belgrade start having Uber in this part, how much that will increase, right? Just to give you an idea, right? So where did all this data, why do we say data has grown humongously, exponentially? Who creates this freaking data? Everything you do, from what our host says, please go to the app, what you tweet, when you Google something, every single thing you do on your phone, on your laptop that has internet access, leaves a footprint in the www. And that is data, right? And hence, that's where we are today. Data has become so valuable, okay? Now, 70% of the world's data is created by me, you, and you. It's not machines. It's not some phantom guy that, keeps creating 400 fake news so Brexit will happen. No, it's every individual that's in this room. We are the one that's creating this data, yeah? Unfortunately, only 0.5% of this data is actually used for real common sense and business changing situation. Right? Unfortunate, yet a huge opportunity for people, for businesses out there to get this into reality and perspective, yeah? 80% of it is unstructured. So do you all know what is structured, unstructured? I'm not a unicorn, so I'm not going to pretend to get technical about it, but I think I can make it very simple. Do you all know what structured and unstructured is? Any volunteers, except Dr. Wolf? Anybody knows? Do you want me to explain that? Right? So structured is something that, I'll keep it very simple, right? You have an Excel, you have rows, and you have, tables. That's, yeah, and it's all. Unstructured is what you tweet, your YouTube, Instagram, your Facebook. These are unstructured information that you need to use certain techniques to, retrieve them and then store them and then you analyze them, yeah? So it makes sense. 80% of the data is unstructured out there, okay? Because this is created by us, individuals, okay? What shocks me is experts predict that's 4,000 over percent increase on annual data that's going to happen by 2020, right? And 90% of this data has been created in the just past 2 years. So hence my point to you all, right? to get a domain expert in a industry for data science is not going to be very possible, but we'll talk about it that a bit more, right? Because in some ways, data science is not new, right? You say data science because McKinsey says it's the sexiest job of the 20th century, right? It is not new in the sense that it was started by the quants, right? It started in Wall Street. Business intelligence folks who every day worked in your company trying to look at trending, you are the past version of data science. So what has changed? Amount of data, which means when there's a lot of data, you need place to store this data. You need place to process this data, because even my slides with this Mac, it struggles, right? So you need systems that will hold and process this data, and then techniques to analyze this data. And hence, data science is born. That doesn't mean your Excel is not good enough. A million rows can do a lot of things, right? So I sometimes call it small data and big data, yeah? So just to give you an idea of the world in data, now, the person who helped create these slides, my colleague, she loved these slides because she's from a non-technical background. So she thinks that this is an amazing way to show just 2013, now that's about 4 years back. If I were to stack the data to moon, we are only 2/3 heading towards the moon if you were to stack this data. But today, you can go and come back almost 7 times with the data. It's just 4 years. I don't even want to imagine, like, you know, what next year will hold, yeah? So this is just to give you an idea that I cannot stress enough how much the data is growing, but I think this gives an idea how quickly it's growing, yeah? So when I started the Center of Applied Data Science, I only knew 3 V's. When I was preparing these slides, there were 5 V's, which makes a lot of sense now. Because when I started, it was all about volume, right? The size of the data. Velocity, basically the speed that is being generated, and the different types, variety, the different types of data, yeah? But now, very crucial, the worthiness of those data, right? Where you get the source of the data and the worthiness of the data, and then, only then, you can get the value out of the insights you get in data. So I think it's really spot on for now for us to have these 5 V's, because no company will get into a data-driven organization without looking at the value of what data is going to bring. There's no point talking about big data if there's no value, right? And then we'll talk about why companies were reluctant to get into this journey. So we will also talk about that, yeah? Investing in big data. Now, it's predicted that the value for big data is going to be about $250 billion. Do you know what that means? Do you know what is Apple's revenue per year? Around 100 to 200 billion, right? Yes. Hip hop, rap, you know how big that market is? 10 billion, right? You know Jay-Z, you know Kanye West, it's only 10 billion, right? Apple is about 150 to 200 billion. The wedding market, you know, wedding for around the world, that market is as big as 300 billion. I always think that I'm in the wrong business. But just to give you an idea, I should have got into wedding business. But just to give you an idea what this number means, and this is totally untapped into. It's very, very early in the stage that people are experimenting and trying to get it right, yeah? So just the IT world has about, 2.7 trillion investment by 2020, and big data alone will take up 7.5% of it. And I think it's very fluid. I think it's going to just exponentially increase, and more people start doing this, yeah? So that's just to give you an idea, like, if you're a business owner, or if you're going to get into a business, I think data scientists need to understand why you will be employed to begin off with. You're not employed just because you're clever. You are employed to make the business relevant. So you need to understand what these numbers mean. You've got to be a bit, soulless when it comes to joining business and being a data professional in the company, yeah? Now, I like this because it's a pretty picture, but I don't know whether you can see this. This actually creates, you know what I talked about, the BIs. So this is not new, right? You are in a business intelligence, you have data warehouse, and then you look at your Excel sheet and you create reports to your management, and that's how life is for now, okay? But the future is going to be this. Big data as a value chain. Businesses are not going to exist in the future. Many businesses, telecommunication industry is struggling to stay relevant, right? Their network is not owned by them anymore. Their network is owned by Huawei. Their network is owned by Ericsson, right? So they become a pipe provider because all of us use WhatsApp to make a call. We use Viber. I hear in Serbia you use Viber because I was hoping people use WhatsApp, right? So nobody really makes voice calls around the world anymore. So data has become more and more important. In my country, voice call is free to any network. I only pay for my data. That's the package telcos have got. Can you imagine that? This is like a year ago. We have to pay Wi-Fi wherever I go. Now I can do this. No, roaming for me here a day is less than 10 euros. But I still bought your SIM card at the airport, so it was still cheaper, right? So this is where the value of data has come. So what has created that? What will be driving that, right? The business model maturation, right? Business optimization, business insight, data monetization. Uber till today does not make money. Do you all know that? In some world, it's a failed business because it doesn't make money, but it keeps getting millions and hundreds of millions of investors. Why? Because they have data. So this is what we call data monetization. And all this is the one that's going to create a value chain in the end. And why is that, right? Because of the volume, variety, velocity, because there's enough information out there. But the only way that we're going to reach there is this part, is to train, create, build, back, borrow data professionals. So a lot of companies have invested a lot on technology, products in their company, only to find that they did not have talents to manage these products. They don't have domain experts to ask the right questions. So like a lot of, like based in telecommunication background, a lot of companies go by vendor solutions, which is important because I think they kind of create the technology out there, right? But with big data, that has become a showstopper because you are expected to press a button and then it will give you the solution to the world hunger, right? And it doesn't work that way. It needs human interaction. It needs to have human to ask questions. And that is why talent has become really important in any companies that wants to start a data-driven organization. Yeah? Okay, why is that? Companies need not only products, but people to do this because you need actionable insights. No point that I have a whole IBM or a SaaS or a Microsoft solution in my company if I cannot get actionable insights. Now, how do you get actionable insights? Right? Actionable insights are created by where you get the data source, how you cleanse it, how you store it, and asking the questions. Now, big data, getting relevant in businesses is a challenge, but I think companies should take this challenge as a necessity, right? Who would have thought within a year, Nokia will not exist? Nokia handphone held 85% of the phone models out there, I think, what, 3 years ago? Right? And who would have thought that they do not exist? I think they kind of exist, but they do not exist now. Now, who would have thought HBO will be out of business now? Do you all have Netflix in Serbia? Right? So why is that Netflix, a DVD, a CD company, today produces, scandals and House of Cards and, like Emmy award, movies? How is that? They stayed relevant because they embraced data. So I was watching something yesterday and someone was telling that HBO did analytics and they said people liked going to the shops to see, to rent videotapes. Blockbuster, yeah. Blockbuster, right? To videos, right? Because they liked reading what's in the back of the tape. They would want to meet their neighbors down the street in the video center. So again, how you use your data and how you can manipulate data for your own consumption could also be misleading. For example, Southwest, that you know, who knows about the doctor that was dragged out, you know, everybody saw that on YouTube. Do you know that was based on data? Southwest data showed he would be the least, being Asian, least opposed to being bumped out. It was selected by data for him to be removed. Boy, did that not go wrong. That went really wrong, right? So it's really important, data to make decisions, but data also to be verified. So I do say the good side of data, but then a lot of data could also go wrong, yeah? So I would encourage businesses, because back in Malaysia, now ASEAN has a huge Fortune 500 companies. But we have that because we have oil and gas. We have one of the best airlines, not the one that, you know, we lost 2 airlines a few years ago, but the low, you know, Air Asia is those airlines that we have. We have great banks. But we don't have Microsoft, we don't have Google, we don't have Facebook, we don't have innovative technology, but we have, I call it, probably get shot for seeing this, LAD, big companies like the GEs and the Hayes, right? So how does big companies stay relevant? Like the telecommunication, Axiata Group is one of the 10 largest telco group in the world after China Mobile and Telenor and Vodafone, yeah? So Malaysia carries its own challenges of having big companies trying to be agile, and how do they apply data science to stay relevant? And 90% of our GDP, 40% of our GDP is contributed by SMEs. So we have 2 kinds of SMEs. We have traditional SMEs, where we do great anchovies. That's part of our, you know, coming from Asia. And amazing, you know, we call it the kaftan clothes. But more and more, we are setting up disruptive technologies like the Uber copycats that's called Grab. Service hero. So we are having a lot of these disruptive new SMEs that's making changes in that part of the world, yeah? I love this. I know Dr. Milan talked about Harvard, so we work very closely with Professor Karim from Harvard Business School, who runs one of the Kaggle and also NASA Analytics Challenge in US. So this information that I use it all the time, I know you would be the ones who are working in this company, but the challenges in a lot of companies not understanding, first of all, hiring data professionals, second of all, keeping them, right? Working for a manager who doesn't understand what you do, I've seen that because probably I would be one of those managers. Data scientists get demotivated and they leave. So a data is needed to be around the whole company. So companies that have positive outcome by embracing, I call it a data-driven organization, definitely have cost reduction. Every company will look at high revenue, low churn. That's their bottom line, right? So then they have these, you know, various benefits, innovation, new products to market, customized service. I don't know how it works here, but my bank in Malaysia will have an umbrella credit card, limit. Like I get a 3-month salary. If I'm a first-time user to the bank, my credit limit is 1,000 euros. That's it. It takes me 30 years before I can get 20,000 data, you know, euros credit. But then in US, it's personalized, right? What you earn, what you save, how your shopping pattern is, your credit limit is personalized. And Steve, I think it's Bill Gates who said that banking systems will exist, banks will not exist anymore. It's been years since I went to a bank. Everything we do is online, right? So this is what, you know, customizing towards user experience becomes more and more important. Culture, the biggest setback for any company in embracing big data is the pushback they get from their own managers, right? It's a top-down approach. It has to be strategy of the company. The C-level, the CEO, the CMO, the CTO will have to decide if their business is going to stay relevant and if they need to get into this journey. Then it doesn't stop there. Then you need to educate everybody to unlearn what they've learned. Change is the biggest struggle for any human being, yeah, including me. And big data does that in a company. You change the way you work, you change the way you produce results, you change the way you talk. I'm a company of 50 to 100 people, right? And when my staffs come with an idea and I go like, where's your data to back this up? I start talking that way because it's no more a gut feel. No more, I think this is going to be right. You need to start backing up with data. So culture is one of the biggest issues that companies have in doing the change, especially companies that 3,000 to 10,000 people, okay? So, and we know the success is phenomenal for companies that want to start embracing big data. Now, I've broken up companies to brownfield and greenfield, right? So I don't know the economics in Serbia, but in Malaysia, you have a lot of big Fortune 500. So now they look at how they want to get into a data-driven journey, which usually involves changing infra. You have legacies that they have spent billions of dollars for the past 20 years. Now, you need to look at an infra that will be seamless, right? That means there's a huge investment for changes, which makes a lot of companies a bit reluctant to get into that journey. So most companies back in Malaysia have like a 3-year plan, right? So they try to look at first start the infra change, build the culture, and then start developing talent. Now, Malaysia is one of the few countries, and I think there's a global stat that hires new data scientists. Part of ADAX, so I'll talk about it a bit more, is to educate the people. The unicorn is going to be difficult to come by. I think IBM themselves are planning to hire 1 million data scientists. I think they'll wipe out any need from any other companies, right? So how do you stay relevant? So you stay relevant by upskilling your current domain experts, and then you get fresh graduates with a data science background and develop them into your domain experts. So I have called upon industry, said, in order for me to help you, you got to help us to take these young graduates. And there's about 36% of companies have started taking young graduates to start molding them as their in-house data professionals. And then the greenfield, the young companies like mine, the cats, we are more agile. You know, we can start implementing things faster. We can get Hadoop cheaper with my credit card. You don't need to go like layers of red tape to get permission to do that. But the struggle is when you're a small company that you always question yourself, what is nice to have and what is a must-have? Investment in any changes is constantly questioned, right? But that also creates a lot of new disruptive technology, okay? I'm going to skip data growth and challenges. We know this. That's why we have Hadoop now. We have a lot of these free, open source technologies out there, Tableau for visualization. So I'm going to skip this slide. But for people who are already data scientists in their companies, if the management is still skeptical about what changes you're going to bring, there are 9 ways to build confidence with big data. Now, it's very important to do data exploration. Now, the challenges there is to trust data to move freely within your company, right? People do not trust data to be given out freely and for it to be used freely. So if you have it opened up, more people will work on it, right? And then application consolidation. So anything from old app needs to be streamlined with new app. That's important, right? 360 view of your customer feedback. Customer experience is one of the most important thing people look at if you're in the service business. So it's important to have a 360 view of it and not just one tweet and you react to that, yeah? Security and intelligence is important to look at, where the data is coming from, the source of the data, that's important. And then to also use your internal data, that's your structured data, to verify it against the unstructured. Okay? Data warehouse. I don't know about Serbia, but most countries have issues about, there's law about putting personal data out in the cloud, right? Unless the cloud resides in your country, people's information, banks struggle with that, telecommunication companies struggle with that. So to create more and more cloud solution, but within the country, would be the solution to move forward. Nobody wants to own a data center, right? I put my things out in the cloud. So this creates opportunity within a country to create more and more cloud solutions that you don't have to worry that it's going to reside in Canada, right? Okay? Improve application efficiency is important, but then the training data, they call it, right? To test your data, to verify and continuously improve it. And only then, right, you're going to get a whole lot of data that brings credible. That you will not have a Southwest situation that you just literally believed on the data and took an action and not verifying and keep working on that, okay? Why is data science so critical, right? No brainer, yeah? It just allows you to make decisions much more accurate. It's not perfect, but it allows you to make, I call it educated decisions, right? It allows businesses to solve problems. It creates future businesses that we can't even think about. World Economic Forum talks about 5 out of 10 jobs in the future has not been created yet. Okay? I got an 8-year-old daughter. Now, what do I tell her? That what she wants to be when she grows up, right? Because doctors going to be out of a job, lawyers going to be out of a job, teachers are going to be out of job, right? So this is important, that having the right fundamentals, that you should be able to create that 5 out of the 10 jobs that's not been created, right? Who am I? Now, my education system back home streamlines people into science stream and art stream. Is that the same in Serbia? Or you learn everything that you like? Okay, so we have a lot of similarity, not just the food and the partying. Okay, so I am playing very aggressively a role in the country to tell, stop streaming, because data science is where art meets science. This is where you look at numbers and tell a story, so your stupid CEO like me will understand what you're trying to convey, right? So it's very important to encourage visualization, creativity in how you visualize the data that you want to present, okay? So what I do, they say I cleanse data, I look at, collecting data from different perspectives, but I think one of the most important thing a data professional should ask, I call it critical thinking, right? Asking the questions and finding the answers. And you know what? You'll make mistakes. You'll make a lot of mistakes along the line, but that's what science is about. Experimenting and finding. Probably you need to make 20 mistakes before you save that 1 billion for your company. And this is also part of me educating companies. Do not expect these unicorns to come in the day one and solve your business problems, right? Because this is what science is about. This is what data scientists should actually do, okay? And what do I rely on? Now, a lot of universities have approached me and said, can you give me the framework? So we built this framework in Asia, in Malaysia, that actually creates all the skills that companies need, and we influence the universities to ensure that they have these skills before they graduate. But a lot of universities are very excited to come like, can I have that course for R, the Python, the Hadoop, cloud data? And I always tell universities, stay true to your core. And I'll say that to all you students or aspiring, stay true to your core, meaning learn the freaking stats and probability right. Get your storytelling and your communication skills right. Get your programming skills right. It doesn't matter if you know C++ or SQL, because it's just another programming language. Today is R and Python. God knows what is it tomorrow. If you equip yourself with the right skills, what you really have to learn is to have the skill of learnability. That means you can throw anything at you and you should be able to learn and pick it up, right? So that's very important. I talk to everybody about that. And then they talk about after oil and gas, Mine will be the second highest paying job in the world. I think with the oil price that's going on now, and Malaysia is heavily dependent on our oil, it's no more the highest paid job anymore. So data science, data professional is the sexiest job of the 20th century. And there's no joke about that, yeah? Skills, programming, maths, and I think one of the things I look at is quantitative analysis. But all this you can learn in university, right? But what I would cry out loud to everybody is to learn how to go up and present yourself. Learn how to put your thoughts in ways that you can communicate it clearly. It doesn't have to be English. You don't have to be perfect in English to communicate your idea, right? And have this critical thinking, right? Questioning everything. Don't be arrogant in questioning. My data scientists, I've got 11 of them. They question everything, right? But question in a way that you are challenged and you find solutions for the companies. And I think these are the skills that's untold to people. These are the skills that universities don't strongly hold. If you're an IT guy, if you're an engineer guy, I mean, you're a geek, right? I used to wear glasses until I did LASIK, right? You're known for a geek, and you're known to be left alone, right? But that has to change, okay? What values you can bring for any business? 8 values. Empowering managers and officers to think, think in data to make better suggestions, right? Decisions, right? You need to challenge your C-levels to question the problems and the goals that the company is going through. You need to challenge the staff to start embracing anything they do on data. I mean, it doesn't have to be big data. It can be small data. It starts with small data, an Excel sheet with data that you decide on, yeah? Data scientists is important. You identify opportunities, and then you verify these opportunities, and then you define your targets where you want to test these opportunities, and then you make a decision. But most crucial of all, if you're the only data scientist in the company, it's important you recruit more talents. More and more companies that have data scientists do not want more talents in their company because it decreases, they perceive it decreases their value in the company because they want to be the only unicorn, right? This is a job that you cannot do it by yourself. So you saw Dr. Milan putting up saying that team of data scientists is required, right? Why you can play a vital role? Why is that? If you have this opportunity, because you have the skills to identify business problem, right? You can clarify how business needs to solve problems. You can identify right data. Importantly, having the right data to make the right decision. You're not going to get it right to begin off with. You've got to keep trying to get that. And then to communicate that problem, communicate the solution. If you have the world's best solution and you don't communicate it, nobody is going to buy your idea, yeah? I'm going to keep this simple. Now, to become a data scientist doesn't mean it's all about making money for corporates. Well, it is. Because when you do, you create, businesses make money, meaning they create jobs, right? So it's important businesses not to shut down. But there's so much more you could do with big data, right? Like no poverty, healthcare, looking at clean water. So it just doesn't have to be, the billion-dollar business, but it's also giving back to mankind. So part of the data science team that I have in ADAX, in Malaysia, we do case studies like how does dengue, because my country, you can have Zika, you can have malaria, right, because it's warm. So how does dengue spread in my country? We look at that. We look at death toll on traffic. So what time? We have a lot of festives in my country because we have Muslims, we have Christians, and we have Hindus. So people tend to travel back for home, and there's accidents that constantly happens in highways. So we try to give back to the community to look at predicting what time of the day accidents happen and where the key areas that accidents happen, yeah? So it's not all about making that billion-dollar company, although that's important, okay? Now, big data is important for Industry 4.0, but it is not about survival anymore. It is to thrive in Industry 4.0. That is why It's not a nice and a nice to have, it's a must have, because now we have AI, we have IoT, Internet of Things, right? Intel in Malaysia uses IoT to predict the downtime of the manufacturing line, and that saves millions of dollars a month. This is how manufacturing has moved on, right? So Industry 4.0 is all going to be about automation, and then we're going to talk about, if automation, are we all going to lose our jobs? And I think it's a yes and a no. As I talked about earlier, there are 5 or 6 jobs that they predict in 30 to 50 years that will not exist. But you know what? There will be other kinds of job that's created, right? So I always talk to the doctors and the lawyers, stay relevant, stay learned, and there will be new opportunities that will come by. So just to give an idea, 2017, we have 3.7 billion internet users, and I was seeing the visualization TV down there that says how many emails and how many people are using search, and that was pretty interesting. 3 million apps in Google Play and 2.2 million apps for now. By 2020, I can't even say these words. I don't even know how many zeros are behind this, right? Look at that. Connecting people, 4 billion. We are now 8 billion in 7 billion in population. Will probably be more by then. 25 million apps. Can you imagine that? 50 trillion gigabytes of data. 2020 is not far off, right? It's another 3 years. And what's the industry that will benefit most out of this? Healthcare, 45%. Now this number worries me. Why do you think it worries me to see healthcare will have 45% influence? I want people to stay longer, but if people stay longer, there needs to be food, there needs to be, energy, there needs to be, that people have to work on that. It's not just improving health lifeline for people, right? Bill Gates spends so much in Africa to keep people's life worthwhile, relevant, but there also needs to be work done around there when the population hits more than 10 billion, right? So it has to have a ripple effect. Education will be very much improved with that. Finance, infra, and energy. But the 45%, I'm game for that, but there needs to be planned to how do you sustain all these human beings, the old age and the young age, yeah? Because there's a global shortage of data scientists, I spoke about it in the first slides. I'm going to give some relevance. In Europe itself, every 4 jobs that's been put out there, only 1 is filled out. Okay? In global environment, if you look at that, every 3 jobs that's put out, only 1 is filled out. And US, less than half it's filled out. Right? And this is as for now, for the next, right? And this is going to get even exponentially worse. So if people don't start putting data science as part of their curriculum and start educating people to take this up as a career. Now let's talk about my country. It's really important in Asia since we have one of the most advanced industry, I would say, back home is public sector, because government always had huge amount of data, but they're all in paper, right? Some handwriting you understand, some handwriting you don't understand. The other industry is FSI, financials, right? They've always been. Telco is my third. Telecommunication always had tons of data. And in our case, also manufacturing, because Malaysia used to be the hub for manufacturing. Now we're moving into Industry 4.0. Now, hence, because of that history, data engineers are very, very, very difficult to get. And I think it's equal everywhere globally. Meaning so this is a great opportunity to IT folks to upgrade themselves into a data engineer. Because getting the data, sourcing the data, cleaning the data, storing the data, and then using Hadoop to parallel process those data requires certain skills. So that's one of the biggest need. I can't even get, we've been spending a year to look for a great data engineer, even for ADAX, all around the world. And it's difficult, right? And then the data analyst, the data modeler. So what we're trying to say is data scientist is in the pinnacle of the pyramid, right? But there's a whole lot of data professionals that's needed to become part of the data science team. And again, this is an initiative by the government. Malaysian Development Economic Corporation is all about ICT in my country now. And part of the biggest idea that we got is to create a platform that will bring the academia, will bring the industry, will bring the government together to start creating this initiative. Because this alone, it's not an industry battle alone, it's not universities battle alone. This is where the community has to come together to create awareness, to create a lot of scholarships, to create a lot of awareness why parents do not question why you have to become a data scientist, right? So with that, I thank you for being very patient with my talk, and I can open up for questions if I just bypass my host here. Any questions?
Actually,
oh, okay. Nobody wanted to ask me that.
okay, so thanks, Sharala. Maybe by the end of the day, I'm going to pronounce your name correctly.
Shah is good.
Yeah. So we do have two questions in the app, but we will have to be fast because we're running out of time. So the first one, coming from Dan, you mentioned the big players in the US and China. We know a lot about the tech coming from the US, Uber, Tesla, self-driving cars, but we know almost nothing from the one that is developed in China. Who is winning?
Okay. So I think WeChat and 1 cent is now valued at $500 billion, today's news. That's China, right? China has its own market. It doesn't need global. 1.3 billion is their own market. So yes, I mean, China has created a lot. Alibaba for his cloud, right? He has done that. WeChat, and 1 cent is a gaming, yeah? Tencent, sorry, is a gaming company. And today's news showed that that is as much as what Apple is valued at. There's no $1 trillion company valuation, and these Chinese companies are being valued at that. So there are, yeah.
Yeah, this would be an interesting subject. I would have a lot of questions about China's data because I guess they keep it quite closed to the rest of the world. But yeah, but but I'll have to proceed with the next one. So the next question is from Zoran. Do you think companies in the future have to build big data departments with a plethora of roles in order to stay competitive? What are today's trends in big companies like Future 500?
Well, that's a very good question. So all these big companies have taken different solutions. GE, instead of changing the whole GE LAD situation, they created their own data analytics company, like a startup, and then they started pumping data into that. So they didn't build an analytics team internally, they started another entity like a startup. Now, the other company that's done quite similar close to home is Telefonica. Right? Telefonica has created a whole data science team in Spain, 1,200 data scientists. They did by acquiring other companies. So they've started that. So that's one method they've used. Another method is a company called Heya in China, one of the big, machines that you use, fridge and washing machines. Now what they have done is they started introducing entrepreneur mindset within the company. That means anybody that has an idea to change a product with data backed up is given preference. So China, probably that's easier to do because you can hire and sack people. But in US and other bigger companies like Telefonica have started working with smaller startups to be more agile, because it gets more difficult for a 500 Fortune company to make changes within a year because they need to move fast. Yeah, that's what I see.
Thank you so much. I apologize, we don't have time for more questions. And Sharala, I'm actually just going to give you your certificate. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. So.